Debbie Silvester is a professor at Curtin University, and she joins us now live from Perth in Australia. It's a pleasure having you on the program. Now, our correspondent Axel pretty much summed up the main issues women in the STEM field are facing, but I want to get your view on this matter. You're a very accomplished woman, and I'm sure you've had your share of troubles getting to where you are today.
Well, I'd say that I'm actually quite one of the lucky ones, because I've had a fairly smooth ride all the way through from high school to undergraduate to PhD and then in my academic career. I think that's probably one of the reasons why I've come to the top, becoming a full professor at quite a young age. And the things I think have really helped me has been having really good supporters and mentors who've pushed me out of my comfort zone to do things that I wouldn't have pushed myself to do. But personally, I think the biggest challenge that I've had is having my children and having to balance an academic career at the same time. So it's very difficult to get the time balance between having basically two full-time jobs. And that for me, I think, is my biggest challenge.
As a mother of two, I can completely relate to that problem that you're experiencing. Now, I read a couple of articles, and the headline that stood out to me the most was, I'm not a woman in science, I am a scientist. And that statement really captivated me. And you work with students. And when you're young, it takes a while to build up courage to be able to stand up for yourself. Most of those young women don't even get to stand up for themselves. What would your advice be to them?
Well, I'd say maybe if I look back at myself when I was, say, 17 years old, my teachers, especially my science teachers, would always say to me, you know, you're not very confident. You always know the answer, but you'll never put your hand up in the class to tell me the answer. So I would say to give advice to my 17-year-old self would be to be more confident and to put myself forward for things when, especially when I know the answer, but really to push myself more out of my comfort zone. So I think I've only managed to be where I am now because I've had people encourage me to push myself and do different things than I would have done myself. And I've also got quite a few awards and prizes, but what's not really said is that often you have to put yourself up for these kind of prizes. So to really push myself to do this and to not fear failure. So I'd say to all the young girls and women out there is that science is a really difficult career, but it's also extremely rewarding when it works.
And confidence is definitely key. Now, whether it be in education or in various workforces, people are now more vocal about gender equality, but unfortunately being vocal isn't enough. Real change needs to happen, and it needs to happen now. What are some barriers that need to be broken down to allow equality in these fields?
I think one of the biggest problems is the lack of females in more senior positions, and ways in which to break down these barriers, to get them up there, is to visibly promote more women in science, and especially earlier in their careers. Calling out so-called manels, which is all male panels, making sure there's female representation, rather than just having the traditional all male kind of figures that you see. So nowadays, at least in Australia, there's a lot of action on having minimum percentages of women on committees, as plenary speakers and conference chairs. There's also a real push to encourage women to apply for these big awards. So if you look at how many Nobel Prizes have been awarded to women, it's very, very few. But in order to get to that Nobel Prize, they have to start with the smaller awards and build up. So it's really breaking down the barriers, really trying to encourage women to put themselves forward. And I think one of the best ways we can do that is to have mentors or programs within universities or organisations that really encourage women to do this.
All right, Debbie Silvester, thank you so much for joining us here on TRT World. It was a pleasure having you.
My pleasure. Thank you.